We also have Assemblymember Robert Carroll. He is the chair of the subcommittee on museums and cultural institutions. He was born and raised in his Brooklyn Assembly District 44, covering Windsor Terrace and Kensington, and was a practicing attorney prior to being elected. I'm also going to out him as a really fine playwright whose play, The Believers, I just happened to see at an indie venue right down the street from my house. I'm really excited to have you here, Assemblymember. Would you like to say hello?
Well, hello. Well, yes, that was a good plan. I'm glad you saw it and liked it. Maybe there'll be another one day.
That's great.
I'm excited to be here, and your organization helps make New York what it is. And I'm excited about figuring out ways in these next coming weeks about making sure that we have independent theaters survive in New York City, because you guys really are some of the lifeblood that makes New York what New York is.
I agree with everything he said. I think another way to make sure that small independent theaters survive, as well as small businesses throughout our state, is to make sure, and I think he's on the call, Alec Duffy, that theaters that have business interruption insurance and have been paying those premiums for years are paid out on their legitimate claims. I have the legislation in the state legislature to do just that. And of course, that dovetails very, very neatly into Harvey's message about canceling rent. Because of course, if we were able to get all of you working capital, or some of you that do have business interruption insurance, that working capital, we can then start talking about, well, maybe doing abatements on property taxes for certain landlords if they give reductions in rent. And then if you had some working capital from business interruption, we would be able to start getting the ball rolling and figuring out how we're getting back to a new normal. I think also Harvey hit the nail right on the head when he talked about the governor and the mayor having a top-down approach that is so focused on large real estate, large corporations. But I think anybody, and I think independent theater owners know this best, is that without a foundation, all of those things fail. So the reason I'm intimately aware of independent theaters, not only did I have a play produced by an independent theater, I acted for a number of years with a number of different independent theaters in the Lower East Side, in Midtown, Uptown. And of course, because of those experiences, I know many people who didn't have to become lowly assembly members, but went on to very vibrant careers in the arts, doing a multitude of things. And they never would have been able to get that springboard if it were not for the very talented, diverse, independent theater scene that is New York City. And that goes for our small businesses in a whole host of fields. And that is why New York is such a wonderful place to live in, is because it is a dynamic place. It is a diverse place. It is not a museum piece that we should allow to atrophy. And unfortunately, if we allow for the governor and the mayor's business plans to go forward, it will of course save, the large financial institutions and real estate institutions. And it very well, unfortunately, may be at the detriment of all of our small businesses. So I think it's something that behooves all of us to say, when we're talking about canceling rent, when we're talking about insurance companies that are sitting on $1 trillion of reserves right now, $1 trillion of reserves, and the American people, of course, bailed them out in 2008, that we need to stand up for our small businesses, and that includes our small art venues. Why fight this war of beating COVID if we're going to allow the things that make our lives worth living and enjoyable aren't going to also be saved? We have 35 or 36 co-sponsors in the Assembly and 14 or 15 in the Senate. It's an issue that is brought up almost every time we have a conference by myself and others. I think eventually there are, just like with the canceled rent issue, that there are large real estate interests pushing back against it to just stifle the conversation entirely. There are very powerful insurance lobbyists in Albany who are talking to both leadership as well as the governor's office. I eventually do think we're going to break their back. And I don't know what it's going to look like, just like I do eventually think the rent issue and property taxes and mortgage forbearance, eventually we're going to have to come to a solution that is people and small business oriented, or the devastation will be so extreme. And it will be extreme not just because of evictions and loss of businesses and loss of great income by so many, but the structures and the way we fund our city won't make sense. And so I think just like how New York was the incubator of the New Deal in the late 20s, before FDR was elected to president, I think that New York can act as an incubator to some smart ideas to save our tenants, our homeowners, our small businesses. And I'm positive. I hope it's my bill. I think my bill is a good piece of legislation, but I think there eventually is going to have to be a reckoning on all of these. And that includes insurance companies that are sitting on record reserves and have been taking people's money for years and years and years. And there's a standard clause when an insurance company is taken to court. What did that person who purchased that insurance reasonably assumed was covered? If this isn't business interruption, I don't know what is. The average person reasonably assumed this was covered. And we need to get those claims paid. I think, look, one of your members is the reason the business interruption bill exists in the state legislature. It's Alec Duffy from the Jack Theater Company, is a friend of mine. And he emailed me and we talked on the phone and we crafted the initial piece of that legislation. I think that being proactive and pointed, so there are probably unique circumstances that you're all going through. And if you think that there are some unique solutions to those circumstances, that's the essence of good democracy. Give me a call, give Senator Hoylman a call, give Assemblymember Epstein a call, give Councilmember Van Bramer a call. That's the point of democracy and representative government. And when we have good representation like that, it is reactive because not all the ideas are out there yet and not all the solutions are found yet. And it will take the next couple of months and possibly years to come up with all those solutions. And so I think proactively being involved in that is very, very important. The unfortunate thing, if the state and the city don't proactively look to protect both residential and commercial tenants, what we will see is a race to the bottom and a tragedy of the commons. There will be tons of landlords who will go out to try to protect what they think their piece of property is. And in doing so, I think that they will decimate our commercial corridors, our families. And so we need to protect them from themselves. And we definitely, at a bare minimum, go and extend that moratorium out further. But then we do have to come up with a solution that works in the very complicated system of property taxes, mortgages, and rent. And I mean, look, and that's the reason why I harp on business interruption insurance. It is a key piece of working capital. So it's a right, you've paid for it if you had that insurance. It will get you money that doesn't suddenly magically become a loan that you must pay back now 6 months, a year from now, even if it's a no interest loan or a very low interest loan. We need to get folks working capital. We need to make sure that we don't end up kind of cratering the economy even more by putting in ridiculous, impossible standards that folks won't be able to meet and forcing folks to walk away from things, to say, you know what, I'm now going to proactively walk away. So that conversation's got to continue. Well, look, that's been the topic of conversation in the Assembly for the last 2 weeks is, where is that line between the governor's extension of the moratorium till the 20th of August, I believe is the date, but will landlords be able to start proceedings in June? I think what we need is we need clarity from both the governor and the mayor, because of course self-help is illegal in New York. So, landlords can't physically remove you from your apartment or from your place of business. I think we need to, the sheriff's offices and other things are used to do that. I think we need to say, look, we're not going to allow for that. And we need to look. Senator Hoylman has more faith in Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump than I do. I don't think they're coming to the rescue. I don't think they're going to do a single scintilla for New York, and I think that is because it's in their political interest not to, and that's why they won't do it. Those are just the hard truths. And I sure as hell hope we take the presidency in the U.S. Senate and the cavalry comes in January or February of next year. But I think that's the earliest. And so I think we need all of you to be a lot louder to the state legislature, to the governor, to the mayor, that it's a little bit of bunk to say, let's keep waiting on July 1st. Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump are magically going to do the right thing for the first time in 4 years. It's not going to happen. I harp on business interruption insurance because it is billions of dollars of direct revenue to small businesses and small theaters. And I know it's not everybody. I harp on it because it's also a highly regulated industry that's regulated by the state of New York. The state of New York has found parts of contracts unconscionable before. This is a thing to really inject much needed funds to our small businesses and theaters. I ask you to urge your assembly member and senators to sign on to the bill because it won't save everyone, but it'll save a bunch of folks, and it'll get folks money for a whole host of things. And that's just got to be the beginning. The other thing is the state of New York needs to borrow wildly. We have the ability to borrow $11 billion right now. The governor's not doing it. And he's not doing it because he says it's fiscally imprudent to borrow for operating expenses. He says, oh, I'm waiting for Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump to, you got to play poker. And if they think we already borrowed the money, they won't give it. Again, you want to wait till July 1, sure. But if we're not borrowing that money on July 1, it's crazy. And then we're going to have to raise taxes. Yes, as Harvey said, on the wealthiest. And we're going to have to bring landlords of all sizes to the table. And that might mean that, the state's going to have to take property taxes. I mean, we're going to have really big, bold things that we never would have otherwise done. And I think you've got to ask your assembly member, your state senator, and the governor to really be courageous in this fight. And look, I hope that then, the federal government does save us, but I don't think that's coming until February at the earliest. And that would be phenomenal. But there's a lot of time and a lot of first of the months from now until then.